Springfield's Talk 1041. And welcome, everyone, to the show. My name is Nick Reed. It is Tuesday, and we're streaming live, KSGF.com. I don't know what it was this morning. I really could not determine, as I was pulling into the parking lot, if it was Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah.
I did. I was like, I genuinely don't know which day it is.
Oh, well, I tell you what, it must just be something in the air because I do not have my life together over here. I am just running late with everything.
Well,
so if you're on the YouTube live, you can watch me do my makeup.
Yes, indeed. I did. I pulled in and I thought, and then so yesterday we headed down to, the Branson area. We were at Thunder Ridge Nature Arena, and it's just, kind of touring around it. And so when I was pulling in, I was thinking, I was trying to think, was that on my calendar for Monday or Tuesday? I was using that as a reference point to remember what day it was.
This is a really beautiful venue. I'd never been down there before.
It is. I had not either, and largely just because parking issue. I can't, parking, it doesn't overwhelm me, but it just, I'm like, ugh, don't want to deal with it.
You don't have time for that.
I just, and the people and the, and I mean, it's... The last venue I went to that had parking that I thought, oh boy, it was at, it was in Kansas City at Starlight Theater, and we went to see Tears for Fears. And that was either last summer or the summer prior. I forget which of the two summers it was. And that wasn't too bad. I paid for, like, the, quote, better parking or whatever the parking was called.
Yeah.
So that, I don't know. I always... So to me, the best parking isn't the parking that necessarily is the closest to the gate, but it's the one that's going to allow you to get out the fastest.
Yep,
To me, that is where it is, because you're ready to go, and you've been at the event for 2 hours, whatever it is, and then you just sit there. And sometimes it takes as long to get out as it does for the event itself. And, Thunder Ridge Nature Arena, of course, there was the whole Garth Brooks thing.
I was explaining that to the husband because he's like, now Thunder Ridge, he's like, which one is that? I said Garth-ageddon. And he's like,
Garth-ageddon.
He's like, I don't remember that. I'm like, you don't remember Garth-ageddon?
Well, I remember people taking pictures being bumper to bumper traffic in Ozark on 65. And that is just insane. But anyhow, part of, what they've done is we learned this. This is part of what we learned. And this is part of the reason, of course, we're down there. So, they get us down there and kind of walk us through some of the things that they've done in order to adapt and make the experience better. And then, of course, we can tell you all about it if we want to. And, the parking now, they've just streamlined things. And then there's no cost for parking. That's all included, unless you can pay, of course, for this upgrade where you get VIP parking, but you don't have to worry about the parking. And then they also have, because I know the girl child is going to a concert this summer, and when I got home, I told her, I said, when you go to this thing, you need to be there like at 2 or 3 because they call it the fun zone. This was a really smart idea, I thought. And it's an area with food trucks and different activities and things. But they have those at 2 o'clock. So you have a concert at 6 or 7. That this fun zone opens at 2 o'clock. And it's to encourage people to sort of trickle in hours ahead of time instead of, the concert starts at 7. And so you have a line 8 miles long of people trying to get in for that start time. But anyhow, original point being is I was thinking, now, was that on my calendar for Monday or Tuesday this morning when I was trying to figure out if today was Tuesday or Wednesday? And then what brought it all home is I thought, oh, wait, Lunch Bunch is tomorrow, and so that means today is Tuesday.
Which we don't have Lunch Bunch.
I know, we actually don't, and I already texted Chase and told him because we've got a mandatory thing for work that isn't going to allow us to do Lunch Bunch. And so then that was the subsequent thought I had. It was a whole string of thoughts as I was pulling in earlier this morning, and just all trying to figure out what day it is. That's the Rube Goldberg mousetrap in my mind. Instead of just pulling up my phone and being like, oh, it's Tuesday. I've got some just fantastic audio from the Oval Office yesterday. Bukele, the president of El Salvador, which has widely been credited with turning that country around from a country in which people, literally would hide under their beds. I know my own sister-in-law from El Salvador hide under their beds as gangs would roam through the villages and the towns, and turned that place around to where people, it's just night and day difference in terms of the freedom and liberty feel to walk away or walk around without fear of being kidnapped or tortured, raped by gang members. And he was in the White House. And, of course, the media has just been obsessed over this MS-13 gang member that was accidentally deported down to El Salvador. And there was Marco Rubio comments and Donald Trump comments, Bukele comments, Stephen Miller comments, all of these different individuals. Of course, the media there, it wasn't the Oval Office. It was, I forget where it was, somewhere in the White House they're meeting. And I mean, it's just this obsession, like, well, this father that was deported, the hilarity behind the argument that he should not have been deported is the fact that his life was in danger. The reason that he claims his life is in danger is because he's an opposing gang member. Because he is an MS-13 gang. The media is running around like, well, there's no proof he was in the gang. Well, first off, 2 courts found that he is a member of MS-13, and that's his entire argument to not be deported, or at the time to not be deported, was that his life would be in danger from a rival gang. So again, this hyper-focusing of the left on people that... What? It's like this guy isn't even a citizen. He does not have a right to be here. He is a member of a terrorist organization. A terrorist organization that in this country has targeted and tortured and raped and brutalized American citizens, some of which are legal immigrants, into this country. Yet, who is it the left is wringing their hands over? I mean, that's their hyper-focus. You have some poor 19-year-old college student that just simply goes for a jog and gets tortured and raped by a member of MS-13, and it's like, well, that's sad and all, but what are you going to do? But, boy, you try to deport someone from that gang, and, what about his constitutional rights? You people on the left not recognize the pattern here? That it is always the bad guy that you're going to bat for. Supporters of terrorism, gang members, human traffickers, sex offenders. I mean, it's just the worst of the worst people. And sometimes there are people, George Floyd would be an example of this. Well, but, he died tragically, and so, okay, fine, even if you want to believe that. There are lots of people who die tragically. This is a guy who had a criminal record a mile long and who at one point held a pregnant woman at gunpoint to rob her by putting a gun to her stomach, threatening to shoot her in the stomach to kill her baby. That's the person you literally erect a statue in honor of. What a weird sense of role models the left decides to craft. Speaking of role models, yesterday at the end of the program, we carried some coverage live of this amazing crew of all-female astronauts that went to space for 12 minutes as passengers. We'll play some of the audio, just embarrassing display of like center of the universe narcissism. Plenty of good stuff that we'll talk about today. Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line is 447 KSGF. Latest news update.
First alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81.
I think this may be the best headline regarding the little ride to outer space that the rich lady celebrities took. The headline reads, "Liberal women go to space, somehow manage to come back even more insufferable."
Well.
Oh, my gosh.
I guarantee you we're going to see just every type of interview under the sun with these gals. There's going to be book deals. Everything.
I do suspect there's a good chance that this is receiving enough of an, and maybe I'm wrong, but it just seems like this is, I don't know if backlash is the right word, but sort of an eye rolling amongst the public. It's like people are really done, I think, with the whole, oh, look at this celebrity and what an awesome thing they did. You know, I think this whole event yesterday, which, by the way, these flights, these Blue Origin flights, have been going on for several years. This wasn't like it was the first flight that occurred. This isn't anything new. A lot of this was marketing. That's why they had Gayle King on there from CBS Morning News. I mean, this was a clear collaboration for marketing purposes. And I don't condemn Blue Origin or Jeff Bezos. Like I said, I think this is Jeff Bezos' outfit. At all. I think that it is missing the mark. This idea that, oh, everyone should be so impressed because of these lady celebrities that basically took a ride. I mean, that's what they did. And they overplaying it at, oh, it's a crew. Katy Perry, I'll play audio of her. She was talking about all the training they did. And I'm not saying that, again, to me, the training is not different than anytime you sit on an airplane and the flight attendant stands up there and you go through all the instructions of what to do if there's an accident and the flotation device under your seat. And if the masks come down, here's what you do. Obviously, it's a little more involved than that. But they weren't flying the thing. They were passengers. Just like when you ride in an airplane or you go on a cruise ship, you are a passenger. And the overplaying of it and the celebrity component, I just think Americans have really been there's just a celebrity push all the time. Like, we're supposed to be so impressed. And a lot of it's because of the nonstop political pushing of celebrities. And 6 months ago or however far back November was, the election, we got off this election and just the bombardment of celebrities telling us, oh, you need to vote this way. If you don't vote this way, it's going to be the end of the world, democracy as we know it. And I'm so important. You should be concerned because I'll leave the country if Trump wins. And then we're all of a sudden supposed to pay all of this attention and be excited. Here's a flight. Again, these flights where passengers have been riding on this, I think since 2001 2021 or 2023, at least a couple of years now. So this has been going on, but all of a sudden now we're supposed to be so impressed because they're celebrities. And I believe that these celebrities have a gravely overestimation as to how much the American population admires them. Obviously, amongst their base of fans, there is a level of excitement there, and I get that. I understand that. But once upon a time, celebrities, even if you weren't necessarily a fan of a particular celebrity, they were still a celebrity. And social media has made these people so accessible. They're constantly in your face. And again, they have gotten so involved in politics. Once upon a time, they never did. So anytime you saw them outside of performing in a movie or on television, whether it was accepting an award at an award ceremony or you were watching them in an interview, that was the only access you had to those people. It's really kind of strange to think about. It's the only access you had to those people where they weren't performing, where they were actually being a normal person. Now, of course, to some degree, they are performing during an interview, but you understand what I'm saying. That was it. Well, they're just everywhere. We're so oversaturated with it. And so I don't know whether they're going to gauge this, and I agree that the whole point of it and having Gayle King be part of it and Katy Perry and some of these, those are the two highest profile individuals. It was so they could really milk it and get a lot of attention and really play it out. Whether they gauge that, and I'm telling you, by the time the show was over, I already was coming across articles yesterday about how Katy Perry in particular was being mocked mercilessly on social media just because of the way she acted as if she just came back from piloting this thing herself after, 2 months in space, and that they just barely made it. It's like Apollo 13 or something with these people, the way they behaved. And it's like, okay, already.
They were more dramatic. Well, dramatic's not the right word, but, I think about those astronauts that were stranded for months on end.
I think dramatic's an appropriate term.
And they came back and they were just pretty calm and they're like, okay, but they were up there for 12 minutes and...
Yeah, and I understand that some may say, well, it's different because the astronauts that were stranded up there for an extended period of time, for a while, not even knowing when they were going to get back home. They're astronauts, so it's not necessarily as exciting for them. And yes, I understand that. But there's a difference between being excited over something and being portrayed as if you did something historic when you took a ride, a 12-minute ride. All right, we'll play audio of Katy Perry, also Gayle King next. I saw one of the gals. I don't know who she was. She got off, and then... you could see she saw, I don't know if it was family or friends, and she busted out in tears and ran towards them. Like she had been a hostage in a foreign country for 3 years and just touched down on American soil. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. I had Russell out to my home at the end of last week to just give me some updates on my HVAC. Turns out my furnace is over 28 years old and my AC unit is about the same. So needless to say, some big changes are going to be happening in the future, which is good because Foreman, they offer high quality HVAC replacements and they know how to recommend the right system that's going to work for your home. That is very, very important. Everyone on the team is highly skilled HVAC techs, and I do also want to mention Russell is hiring. So if you are looking to join a locally owned business with a great atmosphere, reach out to Foreman today. And whether you're like me, maybe you need an upgrade or you just want to get your AC tuned up and all ready to go for summer, I highly recommend Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now you can find more information or maybe you want to schedule that appointment, foremanmechanical.com, or you can find all of their contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Kirk had texted in regarding the lady passengers on the Blue Origin trip yesterday morning. Greg Gutfeld was brutal. Oh, I bet he was.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back, and I always record that. I rarely watch his show outside of the 5, but his own show. But I always set it to, or I have it set to record, so I'll have to go back and watch that. I didn't even think about what his take would be on it. I'm sure it's fantastic. Corbin in Springfield, welcome to the show.
Those women got to do what millions of people, and not just in the United States, but in other countries, who wouldn't want to go into outer space? I mean, that's really kind of the ultimate dream. Everybody watches Star Trek, Star Wars, things like that.
Right.
Love to be able to go to space. They're up there for 2 minutes. They come back down, and what's the first thing they do? They run to a camera and to a microphone, and they start to bitch. Okay? It's like a bad episode of The Real Housewives of Outer Space.
Now,
that's exactly what it was.
What were they complaining about? Because I just have a couple bits of audio. Oh, no, okay. Now that I think about it, was it Gayle King talking about how this was an experience at Hodder, we need to start treating each other better or something, that we treat each other to? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, they weren't happy.
They are women.
Well, yeah, I know. And the other thing, they were bitching about mankind or something like that. Did y'all take a look at the damn rocket that you went up into outer space in? And I'm not going to say anything else, so you don't have to beat me out or anything else like that. But you know what? I'm just going to leave that right there.
Well,
because
we've got some. We will play some audio. Yeah, I remember that. I think it's Gayle King. Yeah. Again, you were gone for 12 minutes. They acted like they were gone for years on some other planet with some other. It's just the most bizarre thing. I do think it is odd that there was no, unless I've missed it, footage of them inside, especially because they experienced weightlessness for a period of time.
I didn't come across any either.
Yeah, I wonder why. That just seems like kind of a no-brainer thing that would be done, particularly given the marketing unless there was just something about it that they thought would be not that impressive, because it wasn't really that big. They talked about they said, they're now experiencing weightlessness. It wasn't, because there were 5 or 6 in there. It wasn't a lot of space in your mind, or my mind. When I think about the weightlessness, I envision what you've seen in a space shuttle, or when they take people up in a big plane, like a cargo plane that's emptied out, and then they nosedive so that they can experience weightlessness. And there's room to sort of float around and push off the walls. That clearly wouldn't have been the case there. So it kind of be a jumbled mess, maybe. And that may be why they felt it wasn't going to be that impressive to see. But that was one part I kept thinking, well, when are they going to go, or at least showing them going up? I don't know. All right, that audio coming up next. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81.
The New York Post has some pics of the all-female crew, as they call them again. Katy Perry with that stupid flower.
I know, yes.
It is so it's cringy.
Daily Mail also has like an actual video of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
they've
they're
got, like,
just
the first look.
It's so well. Maybe that's why they did it. Maybe they were smarter than I thought. They withheld, instead of streaming the video live, they're waiting a day, and then that way they can get additional clicks and more interest in it, because like, oh, I haven't seen that yet, and then watch it. But Katy Perry with that stupid flower, they're just so gross, and I don't mean gross in like a gross way, but it's just the term cringy is almost cringy, but it just like, it's just embarrassing. You kind of feel icky inside. Oh, look at me with the flower. I mean, what does that even mean? All right, here's Katy Perry when she got off the 12-minute carnival ride to space.
That's fine. It is surrender to the unknown, trust, and this whole journey is not just about going to space. It's the training, it's the team, it's the whole thing. I couldn't recommend this experience more. This is like up there with all the, different tools that I've learned in my life, from meditation to the Hoffman process. This is up there because what you're doing is you're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down, for sure. And you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now.
She was holding that little flower.
We're going to get a new song.
She got out, a video probably there'll be sort of this We Are the World video with footage and pictures. She is one she kissed the ground. Again, 12 minutes is the amount of time. Not even in space. 12 minutes.
Were only up there for what, 4 or 5, something like that.
I don't want to pretend like it wasn't, I'm sure, an incredible, awesome experience. And listen, I remember when I was in high school and my youth group, we would usually go to Mexico. There was one village in particular that we would go, but one year, for reasons I don't know, we went to an Indian reservation and did some work there. So we stopped at the Grand Canyon. And I just remember you just sort of get this amazing sense, and sure, you see pictures of it and footage, but it doesn't do it justice. And it's just an amazing thing. Or the first time in Belize, my wife in high school had spent a summer. Was it Belize? No, I don't think it was Belize. Where was it? I don't know. It was somewhere, and there was a dolphin area. They weren't. They weren't dolphins that were captured, but it's really neat the way they did it. They had sort of netting with holes in it, and then you could go and get in there if you paid money. The dolphins came and went as they pleased. Well, they would always come in there when there were people in there because they got fed and they like to play with the people and everything. And so they weren't, trapped in there. And my wife was like, oh, let's go back there. I think you'll like it. And I was like, all right, swimming with the dolphins. But it really was this sort of incredible experience. So I don't dismiss the fact that you do get a level of emotion that can oftentimes only be achieved by doing something that you haven't ever done before. But to act as if they just this 12-minute all of the training that we went through and like, okay, here is, oh wait, let's see. Oh yeah, so here's Gayle King. Of course, this is the CBS angle, and this was huge in terms of promotional value that the trip got, and here she is upon her return.
To me, it's such a reminder about how we need to do better, be better. Do better, be better human beings.
And what do you mean by that?
Processing. Well, it's so nasty and so vitriolic nowadays. And I mean, if everybody could experience that peace that we had up there and the kindness and what it takes to do what we did.
And that's what Corbin, who called in earlier, was mentioning, referencing her immediate thing is to complain about.
Think she's going to start with her news organization?
Yeah. Yeah, you're going to start over there? Quit referring to Trump supporters as Nazis? Well, that's different, see. But even at that, like, that's what you got from I suppose. That's a pretty big and profound thing, if genuine, to take away from a 12-minute ride in the air. That all of a sudden, like, that's the thing that made you think we need to start being nice to each other? Hey, I suppose it's something positive to take away from it. I don't know. I just... It's this weird thing because on one hand, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's neat. But this portrayal of them as a crew and this... what about all the people? This has been done over and over and over again. This isn't new. This same company has been sending people to do this same thing. It's just now they got the marketing, and the media just plays right into it. And I don't know. Anyway, now, Corbin, who called earlier, did make the comment that who wouldn't want to do this. And yesterday, I was very clear. I would not want to do this.
I also would not want to do it.
I would just the entire time be consumed with every noise I heard, with every rattle, and thinking, well, this is it.
Yep.
And so I would not enjoy it. I would kiss the ground when I came back, not because I just thought I had accomplished something historic, but because I would have spent the previous 12 minutes consumed with the knowledge that I was about to die. That would be my experience. And so pain, or I'd pass out. The next thing I'd know, I'd hear the launch, and then the next thing I'd know, I would wake up, and the paramedics would be standing over me outside of the capsule because I would have gone through the whole thing and missed it. $80,000 late. How much did they have to pay?
So I looked it up. It doesn't say, but you have to pay a $150,000 deposit.
Deposit?
So that's the deposit.
What, in case you leave a mess?
I guess.
Sorry. Katie, you don't get your deposit back. Yeah.
So I don't know
that
what the
diarrhea was
is.
pretty brutal. So you're gonna lose $75,000 of that.
They did say it was refundable, though.
Your diarrhea got into the control panel. So, what was the last thing you said?
I said that it did say it was refundable. I believe it said it was refundable. So
I'm guessing the deposit was in case you change your mind.
I guess so.
I'm sure that's what it was for. Or maybe if you threw up everywhere and. Traffic update. I'm Nick Reed. Okay. Wanted to share, did a last-minute alteration to subject matter here based off of a text message that came in. And something I've been meaning to talk. I mean, I've touched on it, but not gone into it too much. And it was a text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. They are scaring up women so much that let's see if I'm missing some content. Nick, just want to talk about how the left has totally gone bonkers about the SAVE Act, trying to drum up support by scaring women to think that their vote is not going to count because of the documentation required. First of all, the documentation required is no different than Real ID that is set to go into effect in May. Everyone will need a Real ID if they're going to fly, just like everyone will need documentation to show that they can vote. The left is trying very hard to scare up women so much that friends I've had for 20-plus years are now calling me a white Christian nationalist because I want to, quote, take away the vote of women. It's ridiculous. The only way I can be compared to those three words in that phrase is if you separate the words out. Yes, I'm white. Yes, I'm Christian. And yes, I believe America is the greatest country in the world. Yeah, so this is the latest when it comes to the SAVE Act. They apparently have realized that the call for greater voter security being labeled as racist, that well has done dried up. It's not having any effect, any impact, and largely because anywhere that there is increased voter security by way of photo IDs, the only thing that we see occur subsequent to that is a greater number of black people voting. And frankly, increasingly, people of color find it insulting, this presentation that somehow they don't have the same intellectual ability as white people do when it comes to the ability to get a photo ID. And just, let's be frank, when the Democrat Party has an entire position based upon the premise that black people are dumb, that just generally doesn't go over very well. Frankly, they got away with it much longer than they should have. So now they've moved to women. They figured, well, I bet we can get some women to believe this. And it is this absurd notion that the SAVE Act is going to, millions of women aren't going to be able to vote. There's a piece in the Federalist, we'll get it posted, 5 common lies about the SAVE Act and how to refute them. The top of the list here, married women could lose voting access. So reads a headline from the Arizona Mirror regarding the SAVE Act. Plenty of other outlets are spreading the same propaganda. It was echoed by Teen Vogue, which said the SAVE Act creates unnecessary and discriminatory barriers for married women and other groups by creating excessive documentation requirements. California Democrat Senator Alex Padilla's office peddled the talking point as well, claiming, quote, the bill could restrict the right to vote for approximately 69 million married women whose legal names differ from their birth certificate. Cleta Mitchell, senior legal fellow at the Conservative Partnership Institute, previously told the Federalist, quote, when women change their name upon marriage or divorce, there's a process for changing and updating their name for birth certificate or a prior marriage. She noted how millions of women do it every single day so that they can operate their lives under their married name. So in other words, this is done. It's the same situation as anything with a photo ID. We do it all the time. We're required to do it all the time. This is nothing different. Texas Congressman Chip Roy, who introduced the SAVE Act, told the Federalist, quote, the left has manufactured fake news claiming that women or anyone other than non-citizens will somehow be prevented from voting. Virtually every married individual will have zero impact because they are already registered to vote and their name is already documented. For the tiny fraction of women who have changed their names right before an election, the SAVE Act explicitly directs the states to establish a process for individuals to register if there is a discrepancy in their document, such as due to a name change. By providing a mechanism to enforce the law, the SAVE Act protects every American citizen's right to vote, preventing their vote from being canceled out by non-citizens voting in federal elections. And then, there's 4 other lies that the left is peddling regarding the SAVE Act, but I wanted to read the one, and we'll get it posted under must-read headlines, so you can go through and see the others if you want. I remember, I mean, If you have never been married, this may be a foreign concept to you, but if you have been married, you know that this is nothing unusual. I remember before we went on, I don't know what, it was some trip out of the country after my wife and I had gotten married, and she had to go somewhere, Greene County something or other, in order to make some sort of, get some document in order to update the passport. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had to do with the name change. This is what happens all the time. Did you have to do any of this sort of thing when you got married, name changes and documentation and everything?
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, this is nothing new. This is exactly how everything has always operated. But we're supposed to believe, well, this is how Democrats view you women. Well, you just poor dingbats running around. I mean, how are you supposed to be able to figure this stuff out with your simple minds? I mean, unless, of course, you have a husband to take care of you and not just mansplain it, but go ahead and go through the trouble of getting this updated information for you, because we know your delicate little mind can't handle it. Are you kidding me? The Democrat Party has shifted from black people are too dumb to get photo ID to now women are too dumb to know how, even though there are requirements for name changes on everything else under the sun, but when it comes to the need to do it for voting, for that tiny fraction of individuals who haven't done that already in between the time, let's say you get married a week before you go to vote, then, those people, there's already in the law the requirement that there be a mechanism in place so that women are able to. So as usual, it's just the conspiracy theories that the left continue to peddle, and the fact that it is based completely on this idea that in this case women are dumb and they're not going to be able to handle it with their fragile little minds. It's insufferable, because again, you can't even have any sort of intellectual debate with these people because they throw out the dumbest arguments. It becomes exhausting. It's not just this. I saw somebody I know. It's so painful when you see people post stupid things. People that otherwise are intelligent people. And I don't know, it was reposting something about if you visit a national park and you're in the country as if you're an immigrant and you have visa or whatever, some sort of papers that say you're not here illegally, but you're not a U.S. citizen, maybe a student visa situation, to bring that identification with you. And the article or whatever it was, it was shared by this person. It's like, well, I hope Elon makes sure that first off, Elon's a citizen. But the whole sarcastic remark was making it sound as if this is putting some burden on people who aren't U.S. citizens that none of the rest of us have. Are you kidding? I'm sorry. Am I the only one that feels like I am supposed to be driving around with my, quote, papers every time I drive my vehicle? Or anytime I try to buy alcohol or get a library card or get it on an airplane? I'm one of these people that hasn't upgraded to a real ID because I assumed, given that has been kicked down the road every time that deadline comes up, that it would be this time as well. Apparently it's not going to be, but even at that, you can still use your passport to get on airplanes, even if you don't have the real ID. And, so these are requirements put on all of us. They do such a good job, frankly, of brainwashing people when we live in a society where you cannot go from point A to point B without having to show a form of ID, yet they act like because you also put those same requirements in place for people who are in this country that aren't citizens, that somehow that is an unrealistic expectation. Once again, it's called equality. And it's the very basic expectation that if you are a guest, a legal guest in this country, not a U.S. citizen, but perhaps here on some form of visa, whichever kind it is, that you kind of just at the very least, bare minimum, need to be held to the same expectations that the rest of us are. And that is, we got to have a form of ID. I don't like it, by the way. But got to have a form of ID on you in order to do virtually anything by order of the government. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Now, talking about the hassle of the government, I mean, just constantly on your back, everything. Try going one day in your entire life and not having to, at some point, do something you otherwise would not have done without, because of government telling you to do it. You can't do it. I mean, unless you're just out in the middle of nowhere and you don't do anything for an entire day. And then, of course, whenever you or a loved one dies, they're right there on your back and they're snooping around. And if you don't have everything laid out, particularly if you have any sort of assets or you just want to leave very simple things to certain family members, and you have not got that locked down ironclad with someone like Ozarks Elder Law, then, government has no soul. And it can be the most difficult and heartbreaking time that you've ever experienced in your life. And they will be there to make it more miserable. And they will drag you through months or even years of excruciating and unnecessary pain because they can. And the best way to avoid all of that is to make sure all of your wishes and your desires are locked down with Ozarks Elder Law. They can take care of it for you at ozarkselderlaw.com. Springfield's Talk 1041. I am Nick Reed. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. You got home loan needs. You got the Carricker team. You got not one, but you got two, Alex and Anthony Carricker, and then a team beyond that to help with any questions you have. They are there for that. I really try and stress that for them, it is not just a relationship that starts after you've already decided I need a home loan or I need refinancing. They are there up until the lead up as much as you need them. So if it is a month-long process of you contacting them and them getting back with you with information because you're not sure, you want to know about this and that, and some people really like to have absolutely as much information as possible, no stone unturned, before they make a decision on something that is that much of a commitment, financially speaking. And they get that, they understand that, they appreciate it, and they want to be your source of information. And it all starts at IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com. And then, of course, after you make the decision, they're there to help you through that process as well at IWantAGreatHomeLoan.com, because you do. Registered socialist BLM supporter Cody Balmer charged with arson for Pennsylvania governor's mansion. Now, I suspect that much of the mainstream coverage you see in this story probably won't talk much about his left-wing leanings. When the governor himself, who is a Democrat but also Jewish, so this is a very problematic conflict for him, stated that it really doesn't matter what party, political affiliation this individual had, because all political violence is bad and it all needs to stop. Anytime you hear a Democrat saying that, odds are it's because they know, or perhaps we all know, that it was a left-winger. Can you imagine any world, at least in this country, in which if you had some Trump-supporting individual specifically target and hunt down, a Democrat and maybe just a voter and attack them because they drive a Prius or something, that Democrats would be out there saying, now their political affiliation, that doesn't matter. No, let's not focus on that. I think we know how that would pan out. Balmer posted a picture of a needlepoint from the anarchist page Riot Girls, which said, "Be the light you want to see in the world." But the so-called light was a depiction of a Molotov cocktail, which has become a favorite weapon of Democrat activists. The man whom authorities have said set on fire Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's home while he and his family were sleeping at 2 a.m., has said on social media that he is a, quote, registered socialist and has shared support from the Black Lives Matter movement. The 38-year-old has been arrested and charged with terrorism, attempted murder, aggravated arson after Shapiro's home was torched while his family slept over the weekend, per the Associated Press. It was back in 2022. He posted a picture of the needlepoint from the anarchist page promoting, terrorism with the symbol of the Molotov cocktail. And it was in Facebook comments that he has in the past stated or described himself as a registered socialist when talking to another social media user from 4 years ago, shared a post in support of BLM, and was critical of conservatives and white people drawing it. It's just amazing, the theme of these individuals. These folks here that usually fall within a certain age range, not always, but it's not uncommon for them to be younger. Now, one of the attempted assassins of Donald Trump was older. But it's not uncommon for them to rail on conservatives, rail on Christians, rail on white people, rail on the wealthy, because let's be honest, this is what the left does. Fundamentally speaking, the right generally recognizes if they do see any sort of oppression, it is the government over the people. On the left, they see other people. And the government is what they see as the weapon that is there to be used on their behalf to punish you or to deal with you appropriately if you as a citizen are in their enemy category. Even when you listen to the different campaigns, Donald Trump, when he would be out there campaigning, would talk about the government and cleaning up the government and cutting back on the government. This is what Doge is all about. It is making that government less big and more efficient, so it is less oppressive. And this is part of the reason that particularly his first inauguration was described, it was so dark and it was so frightening because he was talking about the people once again being in charge as opposed to the government and the bureaucracy of the government. When the left campaigns, they're always railing on, rich people, on people that are obsessed with the Second Amendment, people that, they claim are racist or they claim are homophobic or they are anti-trans because they don't want their daughters being forced to compete against boys. Just listen to the Democrats. When they talk about whom it is that you are supposed to fear, it is other citizens. So anytime there's any sort of manifesto or you find that there are Facebook rantings or communications from a number of these people that end up getting arrested because they carry out some sort of, whether it's shooting up a school or trying to burn down a governor's mansion, it is not uncommon that the people that they complain about largely and seem to have a hatred for are other people in different categories. The trans shooter, Nashville, very similar situation. Now, this guy seems to just perhaps, frankly, be a little bit nutty. And he also had some posts. It sounded like he was kind of mocking the fact that Biden, we were supposed to believe that he was coherent mentally. And so he made barbs at Biden as well. But it's very, very clear through his past social postings that he's very supportive of left-wing causes, which I don't imagine is a massive surprise to people who pay attention. A couple other updates on domestic terrorists coming up, and almost daily there's new updates. And as usual, they're targeting those people in certain categories. And when it comes to government, it's Trump. There's a latest, let's see, Tulsi Gabbard now. There's been an arrest with someone threatening her life. And we just continue to see the left-wingers, Democrat activists, despite the fact that just yesterday we played audio of their domestic terrorism expert on CNN claiming that, it's really the right wing. There's no equivalent to right-wing violence in this country. Oh, okay.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks first meteorologist, the Ozarks home improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81.
Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line. If the governor's house was a Tesla dealership, the dude would have been considered just protesting, not arson. Yes, and righteously so. Albuquerque man, town hall reporting, with a disturbing criminal history, has been charged in connection with 2 politically charged arson attacks, one targeting a Tesla dealership, the other the Republican Party of New Mexico's headquarters. The suspect, who had previously expressed anti-establishment and extremist views, is now facing federal charges as authorities investigate what appears to be a deliberate assault on political and economic symbols that do not align with far-left ideology. On Monday, authorities charged Jamison Wagner in connection with 2 separate arson attacks, one at a Tesla showroom and the other at the Republican Party of New Mexico headquarters. In the first incident, Wagner allegedly set fire to 2 Tesla vehicles and vandalized the building with graffiti, including phrases like Tesla Nazi Inc. and red and black swastikas. 2 months later, the GOP office was similarly targeted in an arson attack. Investigators linked Wagner to both crimes after discovering matching improvised incendiary devices, glass containers filled with flammable liquid and sealed with distinctive green lids at both scenes. I love how the left constantly uses these Molotov cocktails, which were named because of, I think it was was it the Swiss that gave it the name? It was because of, during World War II, I want to say it was incendiary devices, maybe dropped from planes. I forget the exact details, from the Soviets, the Russians, and it was under the direction of Molotov, and so Molotov cocktails is how it was eventually the term was coined. But it's in reference to Russia. And the left goes on, just trying or Molotov cocktails. Here's another story. Prepare to die, man charged with threats against Trump's top intel official. The Department of Justice announced yesterday it charged a Georgia man with sending violent threats against the head of the Trump administration's intelligence community. Alakbar Mohammed Amin, 24, allegedly sent threats to Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard and her family over text and social media posts, the DOJ said in a press release. The announcement came after a week full of charges related to violent animosity against Republicans and those in the Trump administration. Amin said in a text message to an unknown recipient, according to the DOJ, death to America means death to America. Literally, Tulsi is living on borrowed time. He allegedly texted regarding Gabbard's family, the home you two own is a legitimate target and will be hit at a time and place of our choosing. Prepare to die, Tulsi, and everyone you hold dear, he said in another text, America will burn. Amin's social media post included an image of a firearm pointed at a photograph of DNI Gabbard and her husband. Federal agents found a firearm while searching his home, the press release said. The FBI reportedly arrested him Friday night. And yet, I'm still waiting for Democrats to call on these people to stop the violence. The only one so far who has come close to it is Governor Shapiro, but only because he was a victim of it. Every day there's an arrest. Every day there's another domestic terrorist attack. And every day total silence from the Democrat Party. Not a single one has come out and said, hey, guys, stop. The Department of Justice filed in an affidavit that an assassination plot against President Trump is tied to Eastern Europe through alleged accomplices located in Russia and Ukraine. Wisconsin teenager Nikita Kasap coordinated with overseas contacts to discuss weapons and other logistics for his alleged plans, making the second reported plot against Trump linked to Ukraine, according to court documents. Now, I want to take a break, and this is something we're seeing increasingly, and it is people who have plotted to or attempted to assassinate the president that has been communicating in one form or another with individuals in other countries. And by the way, we know that at least with Iran specifically, they still have a hit out on Trump. As a state sponsor of terrorism, there's no gray area about that. We know for a fact that they have cells in the United States. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Increasingly, we are seeing these would-be Trump assassins having one form of communication or another with individuals overseas. Two, we definitely know, Ukraine and or Russia. It could be a coincidence. But the Department of Justice claiming in an affidavit that an assassination plot against President Donald Trump is tied to Eastern Europe through the alleged accomplices located in Russia and Ukraine. Wisconsin teenager Nikita Kasub coordinated with overseas contacts to discuss weapons and other logistics for his alleged plans, marking the second reported plot against Trump linked to Ukraine, according to court documents. Kasub was arrested February 28th in connection to the murder of his parents that the DOJ says stem from a nihilistic ideology he embraced. A March 18th FBI affidavit says 17-year-old Kasab became immersed in the online world of a satanic cult and a Russian neo-Nazi group called National Socialism White Power. Well, that's weird. Wouldn't he be a supporter of Trump's? That's odd. Because as I've come to understand it, Trump is this nationalist psychopath neo-Nazi. So why would somebody that was a member of a neo-Nazi group want to assassinate Trump? Kasub had been texting a contact in Russia and someone with a Ukrainian-based phone number about his plot to kill Trump and overthrow the government, the FBI said. Kasub allegedly talked to his associate about plans to obtain a drone that could drop a bomb and later flee to Ukraine after the assassination. He allegedly shot and killed his mother and stepfather in early February and then lived with their corpses for 2 weeks before his February 28th arrest, according to WTMJ. Wisconsin police said they found a video of Kasub recorded on his stepfather's corpse with candles around the room where it lay. The teenager now faces state charges for the murder of his parents, while the FBI says he is committed to obtain the financial means, or says that he had committed to obtain the financial means and autonomy necessary to carry out the Trump killings. Now, Ryan Wesley Routh was the attempted assassin from the golf course. And as you may recall, he tried to buy a rocket launcher from Ukraine just weeks before he was arrested for allegedly attempting to gun down President Trump at his Florida golf course, according to court papers. The 58-year-old accused would-be assassin tried to make the purchase from someone he believed to be a Ukrainian with access to a haul of military-grade weapons, federal prosecutors allege in a motion filed Monday. In one exchange, which unfolded via an encrypted messaging app, Routh allegedly asked the associate to, quote, send me an RPG rocket-propelled grenade or Stinger, and I will see what we can do. Trump is not good for Ukraine. Routh later inquired about the price and whether the person could, quote, ship it to me. At one point, Routh allegedly acknowledged he couldn't just go to a store to buy the rocket launcher. He later sent the apparent associate a photo of Trump's plane, writing he gets on and off daily. And when the Fed searched his car, they found a trove of evidence, including notes about how he would plan to join the war on behalf of Ukraine, documents show. And though we still to this day have not gotten any real detailed information regarding the individual that actually successfully shot Donald Trump, what was widely reported is that there were encrypted email accounts that were connected overseas. And, you know, not that it is a difficult thing to communicate with people overseas. I mean, you can text message people overseas. You can post social media. You can have email encrypted. I mean, it's not as if that is something that only a person with connections can actually do. But it does strike me as pretty interesting that there is, at least with 3 of these individuals that attempted and had plans in order to try to assassinate Trump, were in some form or another communicating with people that were in other countries. I suppose it could all just be a coincidence. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight, mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, for home buying needs, home selling needs, and just any knowledge that you need to obtain regarding either of those transactions. When we spoke with her most recently out at Scramblers, she talked about, as people often ask, well, where all do you, what areas do you cover? And she noted that legally, of course, she's licensed in Missouri, so technically she can help you buy or sell a home anywhere in Missouri. But she really genuinely is most concerned with making sure you get the best service possible. And part of the reason that she doesn't offer her services, let's say Joplin, for example, is she's not overly familiar with people who are in industries that oftentimes you may need to use when it comes to buying or selling your home. So, for example, you put your home on the market and there's an offer, but they want you to have some termite damage remedied, and maybe you have a sidewalk that is a little funky and they want it leveled out. You don't know who's good at that, right? In all likelihood, those aren't services you're familiar with. Well, there's a certain area here in the Ozarks surrounding Springfield in which Emily Johnson knows all of those people because she has worked with them. And she doesn't want to buy or sell homes or help people buy or sell homes in areas where she doesn't have that familiarity, because then she's not giving you the best service possible. Now, that's something the vast majority of agents don't think about, they don't concern themselves with, but that is what sets Emily Johnson apart. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. Couple text messages regarding Iran being the number one exporter of terrorism and actively having a plot to assassinate Donald Trump, noting that Iran also has a flag in one of our Springfield schools, elementary, I believe. Yes, that's Roundtree. And one of the teachers, according to the news leader, posted on social media that for her it was about respecting that culture of the different flags. They have numerous different flags because of the nature of the school. The biggest one in the gymnasium is the one that is an openly promotes terrorism, in which they execute homosexuals and, of course, Jews. They want run straight into the sea, which is why they funded the October 7th terrorist attack against the Jewish people. For whatever reason, that is a culture that Roundtree believes should be honored. And as usual, the news leader does a huge piece on not that fact itself, but the whistleblower, if you will, and that was school board member Dr. M, who brought it to light. So you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to keep your mouth shut. Keep that thing under wraps. That's not for the public to know. That's not for the parents to know. News leader did an entire, I think more than one, essentially on how shame on Dr. M for bringing that to light. Shame on Dr. M for letting the public know that right here in Springfield there is an elementary school that is promoting a flag that is a terrorist flag. That is as anti-LGBTQ as you can get. That is anti-Semitic. You would think the article would be about that, right? I mean, no concern for how any Jewish students might feel about that? No concern about how, if there's any faculty or any visitors to the school that are Jewish, how they might feel about that? No concern? I mean, that's the inclusive environment that they're creating? Would you hang a Confederate flag up or a Nazi flag up? Because in terms of the position on the Jewish people, there's no difference between the Iranian flag and the Nazi flag. None. This obsession that this is the DEI mindset. in which everyone who is perceived as white is the oppressor, and anyone that is perceived as people of color are the victims. And so when it comes to Jews versus those in Iran who want them all destroyed, well, the Jews are the oppressors, so we don't really worry about what they think or feel. No concern about what LGBTQ students might feel about the proud display of a flag in which homosexuality is illegal in the country, and the death penalty is still something that can be utilized in order to punish those that act in homosexual ways. Well, hey, like the news leader noted, one of their own teachers said it's the culture that she appreciates. All right. Yeah, so that is accurate. Back to the issue of political violence. Another Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line posting, or text message rather. The scary thing is, to me, is not only that he is a violent left-winger, but that the media won't talk about it. But also no one is talking about how the only reason he was caught is because he himself and a former lover turned him in. They probably would not have caught him if he didn't want them to. And this is in reference to the left-wing activists that lit fire to the Jewish governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. I want to share with you a piece Brianna Lyman has that is so on point regarding the left and how they are normalizing violence to where in this country, it has gotten to the point where not only do 55% of Democrats say that they now think it's acceptable to assassinate political opposition, specifically Donald Trump, but even non-extremists the left is actively normalizing it to the point that when it does occur, we're like, yeah, it's just another news item. Once upon a time in this country, if there was an assassination attempt on any sort of high-profile figure, it was this profound thing that across the political spectrum, we were all on the same page. No, that's not acceptable. You didn't have a political party populated with voters in which 55% of them said, oh, yeah, no, I'm good with that. I'm going to share this piece. And what it does is it launches off of Taylor Lorenz, which you may have seen. She was on CNN's Misinformation, and she was just in this sort of bubbly, giggly fashion talking about the assassin of CEO Brian Thompson of United Healthcare. And, just how, hey, got to understand, a lot of people, a lot of women in particular, they see him as this great guy. He's just a moral guy. It's this presentation that is no big deal. In fact, we don't know. It may be even virtuous. All right, Taylor Lorenz, she's a left-wing so-called journalist. I think she used to work for the Washington Post. You know that documentary we were talking about, Sarah, on Netflix. The what was the three-part Bad Influences? I think is what it's called.
Yeah, I think that's what it was called.
There was a reporter that they would go to every so often to sort of talk about this issue. That was Taylor Lorenz.
Oh.
And frankly, the moment I saw her, I thought, well, this discredits this whole thing a little bit. But anyhow, all right. So the Brianna Lyman has a piece in The Federalist noting that Lorenz's fawning over alleged assassin normalizes violence. And it's not just that, but it is the way that the left treats all of these assassination attempts, whether it's the Republicans at the softball field or it is Brett Kavanaugh and other Supreme Court justices, or it's Donald Trump, or it's Tulsi Gabbard, or it's any number of individuals that are Republican or seen as Trump supporters, even people driving Teslas that get attacked. On Sunday's episode of CNN's Misinformation, self-proclaimed journalist Taylor Lorenz played apologist for alleged murderer Luigi Mangione, who is accused of gunning down a healthcare CEO in cold blood. Lorenz shamelessly described Mangione as a morally good man and a revolutionary, even cracking jokes when addressing criticisms leveled at him. But there is nothing humorous about murder. Lorenz's dismissive attitude is not just tasteless, it's part of a broader, calculated effort by the left to normalize political violence and numb the American public to its rising frequency. Quote, Lorenz, this is Lorenz on CNN. It's hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America. And if we don't lionize criminals, or as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, we can give them Netflix shows, she joked. There's a huge disconnect between the narrative and the angles that mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. Now, just a side note here. Yeah, there are a lot of different Netflix shows around murderers. But there's a difference between that and holding them up as some sort of martyr. Lorenz continued, you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems like this morally good man, which is hard to find. End quote. Lorenz even likened the fandom around Mangione to that surrounding Trump. Quote, they want somebody to take on the system. They want someone to tear down these barbaric establishment institutions. But United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was not a barbaric establishment institution. He was the father of two, he was someone's son, and he was the victim of murder. But that matters not to Lorenz, who previously went viral after she said she felt joy when she learned of Thompson's murder. But the left seems to make political violence acceptable. That is classic Marxist theory, as explained by J.T. Young. Quote, Marxism sees all human history as a sequence of conflicts between classes. The classic leftist view makes violence acceptable when wielded in pursuit of what the left sees as the inevitable revolution. Calling Mangione a revolutionary wasn't a slip-up by Lorenz. It's an effort to make political violence acceptable so long as it can be used to force the left's desired outcome. Take, for example, the near assassination of Congressman Steve Scalise by a cold-blooded, deranged Bernie Sanders supporter back in 2017. Charles M. Blow for the New York Times wrote that violence was horrid, but, quote, this country has a violent culture. It's full of guns, and our federal lawmakers, mostly Republicans, it must be said, because there isn't any real equivalency, and loath to even moderately regulate guns, he wrote, later adding that some rhetoric is necessary and real, such that Trump and the Republican-led Congress are attempting to do very serious harm to the country and its most vulnerable citizens. In other words, political violence is bad, but Republicans are worse. It's the type of incendiary language that can only be described and pointed out by the Federalist co-founder and CEO Sean Davis as assassination prep by the corrupt regime. Such language is, quote, an obvious information operation meant to justify and even incite the most extreme measures up to and including unconscionable violence, Davis explained. Since the 2017 Sanders supporter shooting, the left-wing apparatus writ large has only increased its type of commentary blow used to malign Trump and Republicans as threats to the country. The Washington Post opinion editor-at-large, Robert Kagan, wrote in 2023 that, quote, a Trump dictatorship was increasingly inevitable, and that barring some miracle, Trump will soon be the presumptive Republican nominee for president. Kagan spent the article likening Trump and his supporters to Hitler and Nazi Germany before posing the ominous question, can Trump win the election? The answer, unless something radical and unforeseen happens, is, of course he can. The Atlantic's Ron Brownstein said Trump's second term, quote, could create the greatest threat to the nation's cohesion since the Civil War. While the Hill's opinion contributor, Jacob Ware, tried to blame Trump for potential political violence in a January 2024 piece, warning that assassination attempts are on the rise worldwide. Could the U.S. be next? So when Trump was nearly murdered during a campaign rally on July 13, 2024, the near assassination was described by the propaganda press as merely an incident or a shooting. Dismissing the real political violence was easy, though, because the left-wing apparatus spent years cushioning the blow and desensitizing Americans to political violence by trying to justify it. They laid the groundwork to justify such violence. In fact, hours after Trump was nearly assassinated a second time, the attempt was excused by members of the propaganda press who linked Trump to unsubstantiated bomb threats in Springfield, Ohio. NBC News' Lester Holt said, quote, today apparent assassination attempt comes amid increasingly fierce rhetoric on the campaign trail itself. Mr. Trump, his running mate, J.D. Vance, continue to make baseless claims about Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio. This weekend, there were new bomb threats in that town. CBS News' Norah O'Donnell made similar comments, along with several other members of the legacy media. As it would turn out, all 33 bomb threats were hoaxes from overseas. But the left-wing propagandists didn't care to wait for the facts. Instead, they exploited a moment of fear to demonize and blame their political enemy number one, Trump. It was an attempt to excuse the political assassination by victim blaming. And so when Thompson was gunned down in cold blood that December 4th morning, it wasn't shocking to hear so many on the left butt their way through a defense of Mangione, because Americans had become rather desensitized to political violence because of how it has been normalized. When the propaganda press treats murderers like martyrs and conservatives like villains, it doesn't just warp public discourse, it erodes the very moral fabric that keeps a society civil and encourages more political violence. If you notice, the one thing that the left doesn't talk about is why we see an increase in violence towards Trump supporters. Why it is that there have been an increased number of assassination attempts on people that are in the Trump administration, or why it is that these acts of vandalism and violence are targeting people perceived as Trump supporters. Why is this something that continues to increase with frequency? There's never any evaluation of that. And we know why. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. All right, we are hoping to officially announce and open to the public reservation slots for our upcoming Great Escape and all the details. If you've been on a past trip, you can go ahead and secure that slot. That is just an offering that we've long provided for people who have gone, whether it's every Great Escape or just one. Even if it's been 8 years since you've been on one, you can go ahead and reach out to Cam at the travel group, and she will get you all the relevant information. I had a conversation with someone who probably it's been a few years since she was on a trip, and she was getting ready to, well, actually, when I was talking with her, she had just pulled up to 417 Travel Group to go in and talk with Cam and get things set up. So you can go ahead and do that. Do you have the number offhand? I know I'm just throwing that at you.
No, but if you keep talking.
All right, yeah. And so what we're waiting for right now, it's on our end. It's our corporate just to kind of sign off on it, but everything else is done and set. And so once that happens, we'll tell you, okay, we're going to officially announce and open it up to the public on this day. And it'll probably just, it's not going to be a week out or anything. We'll just give you a day, maybe two, depending on when we get the final agreement back and the green light to go ahead and move forward with it. What's that number?
It is 417-887-8898. 417-887-8898.
All right. So have at it. And get yourself that slot reserved before we open up to the public, which hopefully will be very soon. Text on the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line with Kelly no longer on the school board and the issue with the Iranian flag. What can we do to help support Dr. M? Well, I mean, it may sound overly simplistic. One, I would say pray. But I would also honestly just send her a message of encouragement. I can only imagine, as hard as she has fought, and I haven't spoken with her since the election, but that has got to just be a very, very difficult position to be in that most people would not be able to put themselves through. Now she is the lone sole voice that is actually looking up for the kids and not part of the establishment at this point. So if you've on social media, find her there, and I would just send her messages of encouragement because that can go a lot further than I think a lot of people can imagine. So that would be my recommendation at this point. Hey everyone, this is Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Friday will be broadcasting live from Scramblers. Friday Road Show, sponsored by Shirley's Heating and Air. How do you like under 1% interest rate? What? Yes, that's right. 0.99% interest rates available on select certified pre-owned Hondas at Pinnaker Honda as we speak. You go over there today, and you're going to find these deals. Amazing interest rate. This pre-owned stuff. The reason I mention that as being significant is because if you've ever looked into getting a loan for a pre-owned vehicle, it's commonplace. Well, it seems to me, at least in my experience, it's almost always more than you're going to get if it is a brand new vehicle. And, of course, there's a trade-off there, lower interest rates. But, as soon as you drive it off the lot, a lot of people, they don't like the fact that you automatically lose value and so forth. But the trade-off is you don't have a higher interest rate. Well, with certified pre-owned vehicles at Pinnaker Honda, 0.99% interest rate ain't bad. The Honda Ridgeline, Passport, and Odyssey, by the way, are made exclusively in Alabama, 100% American. And coming up Tuesday, April 29th, big grand opening. They're going to have an event open to the public, free food, T-shirts, all sorts of stuff. And that is going to be at Pinnaker Honda. Now, they're open currently, but they're doing this massive renovation. They have been for some time to be all state-of-the-art and pretty and awesome and make for a great shopping experience. And that, again, will be April 29th. But you can stop by for that 0.99% interest rate pre-certified vehicles now at Pinnaker Honda, South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn. Yesterday was a great exchange with the media from the Trump administration regarding the issue of illegal immigration, specifically gang members. And we have watched the media, they pick the greatest victims. And the victims that the left go to bat for, at least since Trump has been elected president, are either supporters of terrorism or gang members, rapists, child molesters, murderers, members of gangs. These are the folks that they go to bat for. And they go to bat to prevent them from being deported to their own countries. Yesterday, the administration was hosting El Salvador's president, Bukele. And Bukele is popular in El Salvador because that was one of these countries that people would flee as refugees because gangs ran the country. And he got in there and he opened up like these prisons that 40,000 houses, 40,000 individuals. And these aren't fun prisons. And it's not like here in the U.S. of A. where you get arrested, you get convicted, we'll plea you down. Or you go to prison, you're sentenced 20 years, but 2 years later you get kicked out in parole, and then you go back through the system again. No. That's not how it works there. Prison is a place in El Salvador that exists in a way that has made a lot of people who otherwise would be involved in gangs, realize that that's not worth it. Nope, not worth it. And there's been just a tremendous difference in the quality of life and the culture of El Salvador because of that. As you know, one of the individuals that the left has been really going to bat for is an MS-13 gang member, one of the most violent gangs in the country. He was in the country illegally, had deportation orders, but he got sent to the wrong country, his own. The reason that he was not supposed to go to El Salvador, his own country, is because he is a gang member, MS-13, and he, because of that, has said that makes him a target of a rival gang, the Aragua gang. Now, knowing that is pretty precious because the left, they leave out an important element of the story. They keep talking about, his life is going to be in danger if he goes back. This guy is a father. He's going to be a victim because the gangs are going to get him because he's in a rival gang. That's why. There's questions that are asked, and there are exchanges yesterday from the White House with Trump, Marco Rubio, and Bukele, and they're all just and Stephen Miller as well. He is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security, and he's really great. If you've never seen him in an interview, he, as well, if not better than anyone, is able in a very almost bullet point way make things very clear. He's just so good at it. And he also spoke to the media as they were asking questions about the poor victim, this MS-13 gang member that's being sent back to his own country, and why is it that that we don't get him back from his own country and bring him here to the United States. I want to play some of that audio coming up. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line. It's 447 KSGF News now.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny skies with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81.
Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The Pyramid Roofing Company just wanted to give you a heads up. We'll have some pretty strong thunderstorms roll through the listening area at the end of this week. If your roof is not up to par or your gutters, they just can't simply handle another severe storm, I want to recommend my friends over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer free roof inspections. They work with you through that insurance process, the design process, and they even offer discounts for our military and our first responders on new roof installs. They do roof repairs, full new roof installs, metal roofing, and commercial roofing as well. So whatever your roofing needs are, the Pyramid Roofing Company team, they've got you covered. So if you notice roofing issues later this week as that rain rolls in, give Josh a call today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Why are we pounding the table?
I don't know. Just a little excited.
Right. Okay.
Ooh, I'm excited to tell you about roofs. Golly. I didn't even notice I was doing that. Sorry.
No, I didn't know what was going on. I thought you were trying to get my attention.
Oh, no. Was I doing it a lot?
So I refused to turn.
It was like a little drum roll.
Yes, it was. It was well done. Here is, all right, so there were a number of fantastic exchanges with the media in the White House yesterday. You had Trump hosting El Salvador's President Bukele, who is known as cleaning up crime in the country there. And that is the country that has been accepting some of its own citizens back that came here to be gang members because El Salvador became a little less friendly. And it's pretty sad when you know, the way the Biden administration, of course, portrayed all of this is that everyone coming here, it was just they were trying to get away from gangs, and it was a quality of life. They had no other option. Well, what we found out is that out of El Salvador, they found that the United States, under the Biden administration, was much more accommodating to rapists and murderers than El Salvador was. So they came here and set up shop. And Bukele has been a great partner and says, we'll take them back. We'll put them in our prison system. They're ours anyhow. One of their own was an individual that was the rival gang of the Venezuelan gangs, Aragua, MS-13. And so because of that, he's like, hey, if I get sent back there, especially in that prison, and they're the Aragua gangs, then my life's going to be in danger because I'm of a rival gang. And it was for that reason that he was supposed to be not deported there, but perhaps elsewhere. But he was accidentally deported there. Now, the president of El Salvador is doing what I predicted he would do, and he's like, I'm not going to send him back. There was an interesting question that was posed to Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer had posted something that was critical of the Trump administration for not getting this terrorist back from El Salvador. And it was an open question to Chuck Schumer, and it was saying if an American had been deported out of El Salvador and then El Salvador said, oh, we did that on accident, send him back to us, would we? I think that's a legitimate question. I suspect we would not. That being said, here is an explanation, because I know it can be confusing, and you hear the news, and like, well, a judge said that this person had to be returned, and oh, this is just some poor innocent father, and it can be confusing. Here is Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller on the issue from the White House.
So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for it,
Court's asking to. And what was the ruling
the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
in our favor.
In our favor, against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel the foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual, at El Salvador's sole discretion, was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time. No version of this legally ends up with him ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your questions about it, per the court, can only be directed to him.
Pretty straightforward. The way the media responds anytime straightforward facts are presented, you can hear it. They just like, well, yeah, but. Well, what about the fact that they don't hear it. They don't care. Again, for those of you on the left, do you not ask yourself, why is it that your party always finds the worst people to defend? Even if, let's say for a moment, that you ignore all of the facts about the Supreme Court ruling here and our own immigration laws and the fact that he's had his day in court on numerous occasions. We keep hearing that. Well, he deserves his day in court. He's had it. In fact, 2 of those times, he's been deemed by the courts to be a member of MS-13. He has had his day in court on more than one occasion. Let's say all of that is irrelevant to you, but you still think, well, he's somebody that is being treated poorly by the system. There are lots and lots of people in this country that are treated poorly by the system that aren't gang members. Can you find one of them to defend? I mean, all across this country, you can find instances of good people who have never done a single thing wrong, who have never harmed a hair on the head of anyone, who are actual productive members of society that are getting screwed over by government one way or another. Why don't you rally to those people? The victims of government overreach, or however you want to classify it, that the left picks, they're always rapists, they're murderers, they're, these violent offenders. I think at some point you begin to go, I wonder why that is. Marco Rubio also addressing this issue. This is the same setting with journalists regarding deportations.
I don't know what the confusion is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people, back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that wasn't refusing to take people back, or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what the Supreme Court held, by the way. Marco's point. The Supreme Court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function in the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said someone needed to be returned, that you would abide by that. You said that on Air Force One just a few days ago. And they said that it must be facilitated.
Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore.
All right, so there's the final bit of audio, Bukele himself. And some of the, he's there with Rubio, with Trump, and the microphones aren't directly over him. So, this is in the room, and so he's not talking directly into the mic. Just pay attention a little bit. But I love his position on this, frankly. And then what Trump has to say at the end of it is also somewhat humorous.
Do you plan to return him?
Well, both of them suggested that it's smuggle or terrorist into the States. So into the United States, like I smuggle him into the United States. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States. Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into the releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into our country.
That's a fascination.
They would love it.
Yeah,
They're sick. These are sick people.
Trump says these are sick people talking about the media. And there's some laughter after that. Now, Bukele, again, a little difficult to understand, but the position he's taking here, as they're saying, well, are you going to return your citizen back to the United States? He's like, he's a terrorist. Because he, again, day in court, numerous occasions, two of those, the judge, the courts deemed that he's a member of MS-13. This isn't a very difficult thing to figure out. In fact, I've heard it, part of the reason is of the tattoo markings, and I've heard some in the media try to mock it. Oh, just because of his tattoo. You don't get to. I don't know if you know much about gangs. Do you know what happens if you get a tattoo or wear any sort of emblem that is a representation of a gang in which you are not a member? That does not turn out well. People do not do that. So it's very clear this is an individual that is a member of MS-13, which is a terrorist organization officially in the United States of America. And so Bukele's position as the president of Mexico or El Salvador, as the media is like, well, are you going to, send him back to be released in the United States? He says, I can't do that. He's a terrorist. What are you're asking me if I'm going to release a terrorist, send a terrorist smuggle a terrorist into the United States of America? No, I'm not going to do that. He notes, he's like, we took El Salvador, one of the most dangerous countries in the world, and turned it into the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. And now you're asking, me to start releasing these people? What a mind-boggling, how sad, how far we have fallen in this country. You think about it. We were, once upon a time, country of law and order. People would flee to the United States largely to avoid the dangers of their own country, and still that is done. But here you have the president of El Salvador, a country that he has turned around in terms of gangs and crime and made it a safe place. And he has journalists from the United States of America that once upon a time got it and understood how it was to stay a peaceful nation in which people could go about their lives on a daily basis. We used to be a country where you didn't even have to lock your doors to your car, to your house. People went to sleep at night, didn't have to lock their doors to their homes. We're far from that. And now here you've got the media in the United States of America, and the roles are reversed. Instead of this some sort of press conference and you have this South American country that is riddled with crime and, the United States is the country that has it together, it's the other way around. And Trump, of course, he's working in order to stop that. This has been a main pillar of the entire immigration issue is violence, whether it's crime or individual violence. And what a surreal situation for Bukele to be in, that here he's in the United States of America and they have the media like lecturing him and well, why don't you just send him back? Why don't you just release this terrorist? And it's like, what world are we in? Do you not understand? We fixed this problem in our country. I love any time this issue comes up, or, an issue of deporting pro-terrorist people who are here as guests. And his approach is always, I do not understand where the confusion is. That approach cracks me up every time. But it's an appropriate one. Like, why is this confusing? How is it that people don't understand it? These people that are getting deported, some may be in the country legally, but they're here legally as a guest per our parameters. And when it turns out you're a pro-terrorist, yes, we will have you leave. Or if you're not in this country legally, we will have you leave. Or if, in addition to being in this country illegally, you are a violent gang member that is responsible for rape and child molestation and sex trafficking and murder, we are going to not just ask you to leave, but we will have you leave. This is confusing to people. How deranged do you have to be to not understand this concept? Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company talk a text line. Apparently he, the MS-13 gang member, was also an apprentice for the Steel Metal Workers local union there, and now the union is trying to help him get back as well. I'm a member of the Sheet Metal Workers locally here in Springfield and have gotten a few reports about it from the international organization. I've never been in a union or any sort of organization that I guess would be comparable, but it always amazes me, and I know my approach is different. The way I see things is so different than most people sometimes. Not always, but sometimes. When organizations have someone within their ranks that's a really bad person, and then, if what this person's texting in turns out to be correct, and you see it with teachers' unions a lot, they will just fight tooth and nail for them. And I guess that's part of the point of being part of an organization like that they will do that for you. But in my mind, I'd want to get those people out as quickly as possible. I'd be like, okay, we do not want that person to be a representation of who we are. Nope, we have standards here. Not even from the external perspective, but just internally. I would like to think if I was part of an organization and there was a person that was doing something that was wildly illegal, that whatever organization I was a member of, we would have standards that would be just high enough to where it'd be like, you know what, you're no longer a member. And so it's always bizarre to me when you hear a story about, somebody that is part of a union or an organization that does something just so clearly atrocious, and they, instead of saying, hey, that's not who we are, they're like, all right, circle the wagons, you mess with them, you mess with us. Again, I know I'm usually on the outside looking in when it comes to these sort of things. Springfield's Talk 1041, a traffic update. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, your first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 64. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 41. For your Wednesday, mostly sunny with a high near 71. And looking ahead to Thursday, we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 81. Are you okay over there?
Why? Because I was sneezing?
Yeah, well, it just sounded really... just obnoxious, kind of.
Okay. Well, that
just pecking on you.
That was not necessary. I'm telling you, some of these people on the left, I hate to boil it down to saying they're just dumb or stupid, but they are. Listen to this latest one. There is a director by the name of Chris Columbus. Now, he's not somebody I'm overly familiar with. I'm looking at some of the pictures that he's done. The point of the story is he directed Home Alone 2. And Home Alone 2 has Donald Trump doing a cameo in it because Kevin McAllister, the main character, I think the scene he's in one of Trump's hotels. And so this is back before Trump became a Republican, and so the left loved him. And you know, if you watch stuff from the 80s in particular, I mean, I don't know that there's a sitcom from the 80s that at some point didn't either have a cameo of Trump or reference Trump as a pop culture icon. Universally, Donald Trump was loved. He was seen as what anybody can do in America. But, you know, the minute that you begin to express a diverse perspective of things, the left comes after you. And so this is what we've seen, of course. But he was in a scene in Home Alone 2 where Kevin McAllister, I think he asks him where something is. And so it's a quick little cameo. The director is now claiming, according to the San Francisco Chronicle, that he wishes that scene wasn't in Home Alone 2, but he's afraid if he cuts it out, he'll be deported to Italy.
Oh, for the love. Delusional.
Well, yes, for a number of reasons, one of which includes the fact that he was born in Spangler, Pennsylvania. I don't even know if his parents were from Italy.
Yeah, why
because he's an idiot. These people are so dumb. They really are dumb. They're delusional. Now Wikipedia notes that his father was a factory worker at an aluminum plant. It says that he is of Italian and Czech descent, but I don't even know if his parents were from Italy. So he was born in Spangler, Pennsylvania, raised in Youngstown, Ohio, yet he said he's afraid. He said, I can't cut it. This is his quote to the San Francisco Chronicle. If I cut it, I'll probably be sent out of the country. I'll be considered sort of not fit to live in the United States, so I'll have to go back to Italy or something. It's not back to Italy if you weren't born in Italy. The other aspect of this that I find quite humorous with these left-wingers, and I think it is inherent in them, not just when it comes to Trump, they really do think they're the center of the universe. Everybody, in their minds, everything that they say is important to everyone. It's part of the reason they virtue signal so often, or whenever Trump is running for president, they would run around saying, if he gets elected, I'll leave the country, because in their minds, we would all be devastated by that. Oh my gosh, can you believe that? That is supposed to be an indication of the shock waves reverberating through our culture and society, that such important people would get up and move because they didn't like it here anymore. And we are to be devastated by that. They are so narcissistic. Look at the way they acted, some of them, when they got off that 12-minute ride to outer space. I mean, they acted like they were Christopher Columbus or some sort of, Lewis and Clark, some sort of great pioneer that we all look at in total and complete awe. Narcissist. And the idea, and I think they really believe this, that Donald Trump would give two craps about being edited out of Home Alone 2 to the point that he would have somebody who was born here in the United States deported to another country. A lot of us would laugh when you would hear some of these media people talk about how they were afraid if Trump got elected because he was going to put him in camps, Rachel Maddow and some of these others, even though, of course, he never did that the first time around. And it's just ludicrous. The fact that we even have to talk about this is a reflection of how lunatic the left is in this country. And I think a lot of people would roll their eyes and laugh because they felt that people on the left were just being overly dramatic. I think some of them are so delusional about how important they are in society, how important they think that they are in society. They think that they are just so significant and so important that Donald Trump thinks about them on a day-to-day basis. That Donald Trump, that this director, if Donald Trump got cut out of Home Alone 2, that is going to be something that, all right, let's just stop everything we're doing. Oh, we've got a meeting with Putin and Zelensky. Let's put that on hold. Oh, I've got 7 different countries that are expected to meet with me in order to negotiate some sort of better deal in order to lower their tariffs. Well, now we can't deal with that today. We've got to make sure that we take care of this director whose name most people have never even heard of because he cut me out of Home Alone 2. Now, Home Alone 1 may be different, much better movie. This is how insane these people are. They really are. There's something wrong with them. This goes beyond the normal, like, all right, you're stressing out a little bit. It's delusional. This is total delusion. I want to also hear, so we're going to get, let's see, I'm going to take just a very, very, very quick break. And there is a story, MSN, it's The Mirror. Donald Trump sycophant Marjorie Taylor Greene bought large amounts of stock just hours before the tariffs paused. Now here, of course, now that Democrats are concerned that this tariff thing may actually work, they have to start some new line of attack, just in case it works. They had their fingers crossed that we were all going to crash and burn and all of our lives were going to be an economic rubble, and that hasn't happened, and increasingly it looks like it's not going to happen, and so they're very disappointed in this. So they've got to find a new line of attack, and that is that all of this was a big conspiracy, evidently in order to help people like Marjorie Taylor Greene rig the system, insider trading. Well, let's talk about that coming up. And I don't mean the hypocrisy of the fact that, this is something, if you want to call it insider trading, that particularly people like Nancy Pelosi that have access to big government decisions regarding contracts before other people do. And she is known to have her and her husband, an amazing track record of selling stock right before it dumps off because of government, or buying stock right before it skyrockets because of something government. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. We spend a lot of time, a lot of money on experiences. And I know this audience in particular enjoys experiences oftentimes with other people. And so often for folks, that means having to find places outside of the home. But if you want to, you can develop an area within your own home, your outdoor spacing, as one that you can have those experiences at home. Now, it's still always nice to get away, to get out, side, and to be able to spend time in the outdoors with friends, particularly this sort of weather, and it gets at nighttime, just a little bit of that chill. For me, I just love that weather. It is so perfect for sitting outside. And with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, you can create that atmosphere. So you may be accustomed to, hey, we all go to some really nice resort and they have this perfect patio area outdoor with perfect seating and the layout is incredible and it's so nice and relaxing. And then at night, there's this incredible built-in fire pit. You can have that at home so that you don't have to go away. Of course, you can if you want to, but just any weeknight or any weekend, you can have people over. Maybe it's just yourself to get away relaxed, sip on some whiskey, smoke a cigar or pipe or whatever it is, pop a gummy if you want to, and enjoy that outdoor experience in your own home, in your own backyard, your front yard, on your land, and that can be done with Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. Find them at hunterhardscapes.com. Also, Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. Story: Donald Trump sycophant Marjorie Taylor Greene brought large amounts of stock just hours before tariff paused. Now, the obvious and on-point question texted in by one of you, the Pyramid Roofing Company talk and text line, is it really insider trading when you tell the entire outside world? This is referencing the fact that Trump, when the stock market dipped because of the freak out, Trump had posted, "This is when you want to buy." Now, Trump wasn't posting information that is a huge revelation or something that only the most seasoned investors understand. It is a cliche. It is common conventional wisdom to say, buy low, sell high. That's how you work. When you can, of course. That's the big game. Now, predicting those things can become difficult. The left is very fearful that this is not going to crash the economy, and that not only is this not going to be devastating for the American person and the American household, like the 4 years of the Biden administration economic policies, but it may actually work out to where people look back and go, man, things are getting better economically. So what do they have to do? They have to make it look like something nefarious was done, and this was insider trading. The implication here is, how did she know to buy it before it went back up? Well, because everyone knows you buy low. Everyone was saying this. People all over social media, whenever you had that drop of 2,000 points or whatever, now is the time to buy. Well, but how did she know to buy before it went back up? Because it was inevitable it was going to go back up. Now, there are some people who might not have believed that it would go back up, but you can't argue, particularly amongst Trump supporters, that they didn't believe that it was going to go back up. They clearly believed that. So why wouldn't she buy? Why wouldn't anybody who had any sort of money that they had either set aside or dedicated to investing, and people who invest in the stock market, when it dips like that, there were lots of people who did that. It's not insider trading. It's called just the way that this works. It would be similar to having a headline if, let's say, Marjorie Taylor Greene won the lottery and then presenting it, or as anyone, it doesn't have to be her, but she's the one that they're using. If the headline was, Marjorie Taylor Greene bought a lottery ticket right before she won. However, did she know she was going to win? Well, she didn't necessarily, but she recognized, if I'm going to win, I have to buy a lottery ticket. I wouldn't say painful part of this, but the bothersome part of this is the fact that there are people out there who have no common sense. No common sense. And they will see a headline like that, and they're like, oh, yeah, that is sort of strange. It went down, and some of these people bought. Huh, what did they know? Well, they knew, at least in their own minds, what it was that Trump was saying was going to happen, and what the stock market has historically shown. That when there is a dip like that, that is when you want to buy. It's the same thing for gold. Whenever gold prices are lower and it looks like the dollar is going to get devalued, you hear a lot about buy gold now. It is expected to go up in price. People who bought gold when it was at $1,300 an ounce, and then you're like, oh gosh, how did they know it was? They bought it right before over time it went up to $2,300. They must have known something. Well, odds are, well, it's even greater than 50-50. But even if you don't want to look at the history of the stock market, it can only go one of two directions other than staying the same, and that's up or down. So, oh boy. The desperation of the left. Springfield's Talk 1041. I'm Nick Reed. The Trump administration's Joint Task Force to Combat Anti-Semitism announced it's freezing over $2 billion in multi-year grants and contracts to Harvard because Harvard University in Massachusetts president released a statement saying it wouldn't comply with the administration's demand to combat anti-Semitism and make sure that Jewish students have a safe learning environment. This is, I mean, you got to at least silver lining. Be appreciative of the exposure that the left has participated in, I suppose, here when it comes to their embracing of anti-Semitism. Now, the way the left describes this is Trump's going to deny education because they don't agree with him. First off, I still, to this day, no one has provided a relevant answer as to why it is that these universities need me to go to work and give part of my tax dollars to them anyway, aside from the cesspool of anti-Semitism that they have become. That just shouldn't even be happening anyhow. But this is how desperate they are to continue to harbor anti-Semitism and to foster anti-Semitism. And they can couch it as freedom of speech all they want, but we all know if a university was overrun by students that were neo-Nazis, that were chasing black students off campus, that were marching through the streets calling for the elimination of blacks, calling for them all to be sent back to Africa, they'd have no trouble whatsoever deporting those individuals on student visas or denying those university dollars. That's because the reason it's anti-Semitism is synonymous with the Democrat Party. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.